Hello, I'm Paul Cowell at Whitestone Country Inn. I want to tell you a story that happened 41 years ago and taught me a really valuable lesson. I was building a house in North Knoxville for the family, and my dad had been a builder, and I was good enough to know to hire people to do what I couldn't do. And as a result, I was down in the foundation of the house laying blocks in what was to be the basement. It was late afternoon. My son Kevin was 5 years old at the time, and he was driving a little truck around on mounds of dirt around the dugout basement. I counted the number of blocks that I had to finish laying, and I was one block short. At the far end of the house, probably 100 feet away, there was a pile of concrete blocks. And it was getting late in the afternoon. We lived close by. I really thought I was not going to get through by the time it got dark. And so I talked to Kevin, called him over and said, would you go get me one more block so I can finish this job today? Kevin was always compliant, would do whatever you asked him to do. So he parked his little truck that he was motoring around on and disappeared behind some mounds of dirt and behind the basement. I finished laying the blocks I had, and several minutes later, Kevin had never come back. I wondered what had happened, but I thought, well, it's getting dark. He might have even gone to the house we were living in just down the hill. And so I climbed up out of the basement and walked around the building site to the pile of blocks. And there he was. He had managed to pull a concrete block about 10 feet. He was crying. I just hadn't thought about what a concrete block weighs in a 5-year-old boy. And the block weighs 42 pounds. And I said, oh, Kevin, I'm so sorry. And he was just tugging for dear life. And I said, it's okay, I'll get it. So I patted him on the shoulder and picked up the block, and he wailed some more. And I said, what's wrong? He said, I really want to help. So I put the block down, picked Kevin up, picked the block up, carried Kevin and the block with him holding onto the block to the other end of the house and set them both down and climbed back in the basement. And as I was doing that, I was so impressed with the thought that that's how I am about a lot of things. Sometimes it seems like God has given me more to do than I can do. And it almost was like he was talking to me, certainly not audibly that day. But what I was feeling is that God would say to me, I give you a job that's too big for you, and I know you can't do it. And I want you to say real quickly, I can't do this. And then I'll come get you and the block, and I'll carry you both. I think we need to understand real quickly that we've been given more to do, even in terms of salvation, but in terms of works that the Apostle Paul said, I can do all things through Christ, but he also said, without him I can do nothing. And so God has designed the world where you really need his help. You need his support. And if you seem today to be struggling with a task that's too much, it's overwhelming you, and you've struggled with it, perhaps he never intended you to do that by yourself, but he intended you to look at it and say, I can't do this. I see that as the way the law is in the Old Testament. He gave us the law, but it's too much. We can't do it. And we can't live righteously today without God's help. We're clothed in the robes of his righteousness. So I think of that often when I face a task that's way too much for me. And sometimes I'll start off on my own to do it. You remember the footprints in the sand where two sets of footprints go along, and then all of a sudden there are no prints for the other person, one set, and Jesus says, that's when I was carrying you. And that's how I feel a lot of times in life. If I start off in the strength of my ability to do something, I need to quickly say, whoa, I think this is too much. I'm going to need God's help with this. And the result is he comes and says, I knew it was too big a job. Here, I'll carry you. If you're overwhelmed today by life, look for some help. You were never intended to do this alone. There's an old song we sang in church last Sunday, and I thought of this. The title is Learning to Lean on Jesus. I think it was Lennon who said that Christianity is a crutch for cripples, I think how accurate that is. I'm not sure he meant it as a compliment, but we are not given the ability to get through life on our own without some help from God. If you've got a job too much today and it's weighing you down where you think, I can't do this, why don't you get some help? He's a very present help in time of need. Kevin's story a long time ago continues to remind me about my inability to do some of the things I thought I was supposed to do, but what I was supposed to do is look at it and say, I'm going to need your help with this, Lord. Don't get overwhelmed today. Get some help. Paul Cowell, Whitestone Country Inn.